know how to consult people. See, the people down here, me, Carol, you, TV, consulted by these leaders in order for them to make the decisions, because hey,
that's true.
The laws and rules and decisions that they make are going to guide us and rule us. So we need to know what they're doing and how they're doing it in order for us to work together as a complete entity. Now we'll start forward with some of the stories that made the headlines. Now for me, I don't know about you, Carol, you'll definitely tell us what made the headlines for you.
Yes.
For me was of course the 243 names that was released by Robert Chagulanyi yesterday after His Excellency on Saturday came up and said there's no fear for Ugandans because what is happening is not that people are disappearing without knowing their whereabouts. However, the state or security agencies are responsible for what people have talked, kidnapping these number of people, especially those from the opposition. And the president says it was done because these people were, he tagged them, terrorists. Now, the president released a number of names, and he says 177 of those people were arrested, and some of them were released, while 59 of those are still undergoing investigations. However, Robert Chagulanyi said 243 names are still missing. What do you make of that?
I'm just wondering, how did they make a list that 243 names? Are they 243?
Yes, 243.
How exactly did they compile them and come up with a list and say, okay, these are the people that are missing still on this case? Because it has been going on for a long time, and Robert Chagulanyi, of course, promised us to come back with evidence, full-tabled evidence that he wasn't able to give while he was away in detention in his home on house arrest. So I would say this is, first of all, a good move for him to come out and give us at least some tangible evidence with numbers on how, on who exactly is missing and how they are planning as NUP to make sure that the light is being shined on these people to get them out of wherever they are.
But the question is, do they have the evidence? Because
by the time they know that there are 243 people, by the time they know the exact number of people, it means that they've tracked their they've tracked their sources and gotten to know exactly how many people there are. So
there's a
evidence,
difference.
That's proof of evidence, right?
There's a difference between saying there are 243 people missing, but how did they miss? Are you sure that it is the drones that you're talking about that kidnapped them? Are you sure about that evidence? However, we also know that Robert Chagulanyi on the 15th, actually, of February 2021, put up 53 affidavits, a sworn statement to the opposing lawyers, and he says, here's what you were asking for. We're waiting for the 20th of February 2021 when the lawyers will come back with their response to the affidavits. Now we're seeing how much evidence Robert Chagulanyi will be having on the table. We also know that among the people who spoke was the Lord Mayor of Kampala, Arias Lukwago, who says this government is reminding us of the Idi Amin time.
Affidavits in evidence.
Well, when you compare the times, the Idi Amin time and this time, first of all, in Idi Amin's time, there wasn't enough freedom for people to bring out such evidence and table it before the courts of law, because Amin was a person who just decided out of the blue and said, okay, I have decided as president, with the powers vested in me as the president of Uganda, I have decided to take this course and, of course, cause anything that he felt like causing. If he felt like murdering you, I'm told he murdered a number of people, and it is believed that even Janan Wum, who we are celebrating today, was murdered by Idi Amin. But the 53 affidavits, like Chagulanyi's lawyer said, Wameli, who is also the head of legal department and at NUP, and confidant of the Honorable Chagulanyi, when he said that he's going to expose how exactly Electoral Commission acted against the law on several occasions, and the evidence in affidavits is also indicating that Uganda People Defense Forces were engaged in multiple voting at Kabahambe Church of Uganda. You do look at a man who has his facts right, and we hope we hope that he comes out and gives us more, or explains more on this matter, because by the time he said that UPDF soldiers went and put on layer and came to vote, meaning that they're going to have enough evidence. So I don't know how Electoral Commission is ready to handle this.
Have
yes.
enough evidence.
That's true.
If you're bringing such allegations
that's true.
on board. You must have enough evidence. And that's why when the stories of Idi Amin usually come up, my first question is evidence. Unless there's evidence to put someone to that crime at the time, then you have no right to say they did this or they did that, because in court without evidence, someone can be left to go. Now we know that among the people who talked about and condemned the president's speech and condemned the kidnaps that have been ongoing is Archbishop of Kampala, Cyprian Kizito Lwanga, who said security agencies are also reminding him of the Idi Amin time. Now these are the two things right now that media is speaking about, and I'm sure you're speaking about as well in your homes, in your living rooms, and that particular session of the court that will be, the ruling will be made on the 18th of March 2021, and we know that the court has said it will put 2-seaters, 102-seaters, that's 200 seaters.
Yes.
One will be for the lawyers and will be for the judges, and it will also be for the group, the people from these particular 2 sessions, and then the other one will be for the public. I can't believe that they're letting the public in this particular petition and they're letting them go and watch it. That's impressive, because I know a lot of people would want to do it. So they created a different parking spot in Kololo where people will be parking their cars there, and they promised their cars will be safe.
Of course, if you look at this matter, political analysts are coming out to say how it is handled by both parties is going to be very, very important, especially when you look at the fact that now they've let in the public to come and witness. It means that maybe Electoral Commission is trying to be independent, like it has always promised us it would be.
Transparent.
And transparent, and making sure that everybody is a witness to whatever is going to happen. Because when the 53 affidavits were handed over to Sally, who is the registrar, it took very many hours, up to 7 p.m. They were still seated trying to, because if you compare this petition, Latifa, with the petitions that we've had before, for
the 2016, the 2001, the 2006.
Don't you notice a difference with this one particularly? How it's being handled, the steps that are being taken in to get to, you know, to get to the bottom of the matter. And we should also remember that some of the former presidential aspirants have come up to back up Kyagulanyi on the petition.
The Lord Mayor himself
it's
backed up Robert Kyagulanyi, and we know that one time he was thrown out of court because he was not properly dressed for the court session. And we know that FDC and ANT have said they will back him up. And we also know that Robert Kyagulanyi has engaged the lawyers of the former Prime Minister Mama Mbabazi to be part of this case, because he
former lawyers?
Yes, the former lawyers of Mama Mbabazi, because he says Mama Mbabazi is an advocate, and he says the reason why he's doing that is because there was there were some arguments that were made during the petition of Mama Mbabazi, and the Electoral Commission did not follow them up. Now, as we're speaking about the court session, of course, and another funny part that I'll be telling you about in a short time, we also know that Malema Birizi, one of the most controversial lawyers we have in Uganda, is asking for Justice Alfonso Owiny-Dollo to be put out of the case, to be pulled out. And he's saying that he's citing prejudice. And Justice Owiny-Dollo used to work with the president, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and he says that on that note, he will be biased in judging this case. Remember, he's the head of the 9 judges who will be, or 9 justices who will be responsible for this particular case.
Latifa, in Uganda we say Bwobeera. Imagine Alfonso Owiny-Dollo has been working in the government for some time now, close to the president, and I want you to imagine your boss is in court and you are the lawyer. Won't you have any bias and fall to their side somehow? Because if we take a look at the petitions that have been going on, if you take a look at the time Honorable Medad Segona was speaking and trying to bring up a point, you would see that Alfonso Owiny-Dollo is squeezing him tightly. He's squeezing him, you know, like trying to make him make a simple mistake or something like that. But of course, as lawyers, they hustle it out, and you'd see that Alfonso Owiny-Dollo is not biased. He's trying to be as neutral as possible, but we can't rule out the fact that since he works closely with the president, he might be a bit biased.
But here's the thing. If
Yes.
you're going to go on that ruling, remember
Yes.
that around 2 or 3 or 4 justices in that case were in Museveni's petition in 2016 and some of them in the 2006 petition, and they're the ones that ruled and president won in these 2 subsequent election petitions. Does that also make them unable to rule in this particular case? And also aside from that, some of them were at the time when we were changing the age limit, some of them were consulted and they were there and they passed the removal of age limit in the constitution.
Yes.
Are they also going to be unable to stand in this? Because these are questions that we ought to be asking ourselves. However, we know that they're still going through the process of verifying these justices, and you never know. If Robert Chagulanyi applied to court and said, we feel like this justice is biased and he cannot work on our case, he may be removed. The process is still continuing, and we know by 20th, the NUP camp will have to bring forward a rejoinder to tell us exactly what their response is to what the other lawyers, the opposing lawyers, will be setting in motion.
Let's look at the cases that are on table. Yes. By 20th February, will they be through? Because 20th February is 3 days away or 4 days away. Will they be through with looking at exactly what the problem is and getting to the core of it, and being, will the respondents be ready to now respond to the petitioning side?
The problem is the court has limited time that has been stipulated for this case to be completed, and they cannot do anything other than finish the case in this stipulated time that they have been given. Anything more than that will be beyond this particular date given. Remember, when Electoral Commission was announcing results, they knew that there was a particular time session that results needed to be announced in, and they made sure that regardless of what happened, the results would be announced within that time limit. So it's a tricky situation for them, and Robert Chagulanyi seems to have a lot of evidence on court, and he seems to be very confident about his evidence, but we're waiting to see how that will turn up. We cannot deeply discuss this conversation because the case is still in court, and we will have to wait and see what happens. But here's the thing, STV will be bringing you a round news coverage of what is happening on this court session, and also what is happening in the Nubian Lee and Eddie Mutwe case, because that is also something worth discussing.
I've not been on air since they chopped off their hair. So I've been dying to talk about that topic. How could you chop their hair? Like, you know, I was there just recently, and I saw pictures on the social media.
Yes.
And Eddie Mutwe was bald without even his beard, that his signature look or something. And then I looked at Nubian Lee's head. I had never in my life seen him without hair. And I was just wondering, is this infringement of rights, of human rights? Like, did they infringe on their rights, or was it within the law for them as maybe prisoners to be, are they allowed, is it fair for them to have their hair cut? Is it fair for them to be treated so in such a way leading to their hair being cut? I don't know, but I'm just wondering why it would happen like that. They are accused, of course, of different cases. We shouldn't forget like manhandling police officers when Robert Chagulanyi was stopped from campaigning those days. As you remember, STV, of course, gave you those stories in full swing. So they have a number of cases fighting police officers, being violent and causing ruckus and stuff like that. So they were kept in the bars, behind the bars, for fear of causing more violence. I don't know how, when the state is going to maybe look into it and say, okay, it's time for them to maybe get out and stuff like that. But we should remember that their boss, should I say, the Honorable Chagulanyi, is petitioning, and that is the big story that we have right now. Though it would have been good, of course, for his fellow supporters to be outside and maybe give him moral support or emotional support. You never know what kind of support can come from the people that are always around you, because now I believe these are what some of his close people that they touched and made sure that maybe they separate them from him. I don't know how far it's going, but yeah, that's what's on ground currently.
6 charges slapped against Nubian Lee and Eddie Mutwe and the other people who were arrested. Together with them, 49 of them are still in prison pending bail. And we also know that among those charges is the fact that they were found with 40 rounds of ammunition. And these are the allegations that police have put on these particular people, and are waiting for evidence to also come up on that case. However, we know that the Machindie court-martial said that, unfortunately, they will not be able to leave them because they're scared that once they go out, they will cause chaos. And that's something that happened to Robert
Edimutwe
Chagulanyi.
and NUP, and sorry, not Robert Chagulanyi, because you said Robert Chagulanyi, I said NUP. Is Edimutwe and Nubian Lee stronger than, are they stronger than the forces?
No, but it's not
can they
about,
really
it's
go
not
against?
about, it's not about stronger than the forces. Here's what happened.
Yes.
From the 18th of November to the time that they were arrested, that is December 30th, and that was in Kalangala.
Yes.
Was it in Kalangala Island?
Yes.
Now, we know that during that time, there were a lot of people, including the abductions, were done because security felt that there were some people who would, they tagged them as terrorists, and they said that they felt that these people would be a threat to the 14th January elections, and that's why they stayed in prison. And here's
that's
the
what
thing.
we understood.
We know that Edimutwe is the very close friend and a bodyguard to Robert Chagulanyi, and he would do whatever it takes to protect Robert Chagulanyi. And I know that is where he got in trouble, because he was trying to protect his boss, and we know Nubian Lee is a very close ally to Robert. Now, the moment you're leaders in a certain party, a party that the government feels is opposing, and the opposition is more than just I am an opposition party, but there's the November 18th chaos that happened in Uganda. There's reason for them to be skeptic about, one, your whereabouts, two, if they release you, what would you be doing? Because remember, there were leaflets that were being thrown in Machindie, just near here, and there were leaflets that were being thrown, and there were also other leaflets in Mukono where a number of youth were arrested, and of course they were saying the dictator needs to be removed. Now, such messages, you know what happens, and you know what the internet being on did. Remember when Robert Chagulanyi was being arrested, and the conversation was he was stabbed, and that is what caused the chaos. So the state is trying to protect its people. And the question I asked yesterday while I was with Simon Chris and said was, how far are they supposed to go in order to protect this nation from itself? And abduction and internet shutdown and denying people their right to bail. Is that how far we ought to go to keep peace and security in this nation?
Of course, many questions to be asked or to answer, because if you look at a person like Edimutwe and his close ally, Nubian Lee. I'm just wondering, at what level did they cause violence? If you take a look at the events that happened during election time here in Uganda, because the people who were inciting violence, in my opinion, were people on social media where you would go find posts of NUP supporters saying this: if you don't release this guy, we're going to fight and stuff like that. I didn't see Edimutwe posting and saying, okay, we were going to we want violence. All he did was protect his boss and try to do his job, yes. And of course, as well as Nubian Lee, I didn't see a post from him really trying to incite violence. So very many questions to be asked. One of them is, who exactly is inciting violence? Are they having the right people in custody, or did they just take faces
No. I think what happened was...
Question,
yes.
all right. The second question would be, did Robert Chagulanyi prepare himself for such outcomes? Did he prepare himself for his close friends and allies going into prison on his behalf and because of him? Did he think about this whole, thing? Did he think about
struggle, Carol? Struggle. And you take it the way it is. But here's the thing, Olava, the reason why Nubian Lee and Edimutwe were arrested is that, see, you remember when the nominations were happening, and then Robert Chagulanyi finished his nominations, he was getting out of the nominations, and then he was arrested. Now, during the time, if you see what was happening, Edimutwe was trying to protect his boss and friend, Robert Chagulanyi, and he was pulling him away from the security forces, and the security forces were pulling him away from him. And if you see that process, anything could have happened. There could be a fight that happened between Edimutwe and the security forces, because of course he was protecting his boss, he was doing his job. And this is where he was arrested, because there was an assault on police officers, and those were the charges that was slapped against it. But hey, like I said, Tulimu struggle. It's a struggle that is not an exciting one because 53 people were killed on November 18th. People lost their lives, and we know that also during these election times, a number of people were arrested. Some of them have been released, some of them are still there, and a number of them have been abducted, like it is being said. And now, police is saying that the number of people that were abducted in numberless drones, because the question from journalists and of course Lukwago was why numberless drones and why in the wee hours of the night.
Yes.
Now we had a conversation and the police in response was telling us, of course the people who spoke was police director in charge of crime intelligence, AIGP Brigadier Christopher Damulire, and also the one who is responsible for traffic. I'm forgetting his name slightly.
Okay.
I'm forgetting his name, but of course if I get it, I'll be telling us about it. And he was explaining, that is Lawrence Niwabini, and he was telling us that the reason why these drones were numberless were because when these drones are being imported into the country, the number plates fall off.
Very tiny.
They're very tiny,
so
and then they fall off. And
Latifa, what do you think about this reason coming from Nuarini, a leader in traffic police?
I have always said we need communications and PR should be better in police because the explanations that are being given are not satisfactory.
Exactly.
If you look at what happened when Robert Chagulanyi reported a drone above his house, he recorded the drone, and then Baine said it was just a star. Now, when we look at these situations, and of course, when a number of people were abducted, and then we had Jejo Dong and the AIGP, Okoth Ochola, come up and say that the people who were abducted, the police do not know about their whereabouts, and the fact that, you know, there's no connection between them and the abductions. And then the president came and it was an embarrassment.
And it was a very huge embarrassment to police.
So what I'm hoping is there'll be a better communication of truth from the police versus what people want to hear. Because as a security agency, you need to make sure that you grow a relationship of trust between you and the people you serve, because if you don't, whatever communication you give, nobody will believe it.
Of course, tell me who still trusts police at this point where, of course, the president comes and contradicts what the leaders in police are saying, because I believe the leaders, of course, have to first rectify and find out exactly what's going on in their camp. How did they deal with the people? Where are they? And who exactly are the people that, because we saw clips on social media running around where mothers of these kids were crying like, "Awana wafete tubalaba, we're not seeing our children, we don't know where they are. If they are in prison, we've gone to the prisons, they are not there. So where could they be?" And the security forces gave us some big answers, which the president came and totally, of course, caused a very huge embarrassment when he says the forces know exactly where these people are. And I agree with him, because if you take a look, Latifa, no one has the authority and right here in Uganda to just arrest someone apart from these forces. So I really do agree with him. And of course, Martin Okoth Ochola, we should remember that he sent a stern warning and said anybody who is trying to instigate violence at any level is going to be dealt with. And he even made a statement and said he will regret why their mother brought them into this life. Now I'm thinking, if anybody, of course, knew where the kidnappers were or stuff, he would listen to the IGP's comment and say, okay, I'm scared for my life, so let me just keep quiet and not cause any violence.
Well, what you see on your screen is a few names of the people
Just
that Robert Chagulanyi wrote, and he said 423 of them were kidnapped, and some of them are still missing, and these are some of the names. And if you go to our social media platforms, as STV Uganda on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you will find that information that our news team put together for you who missed, of course, the Select News at 9 and Select Yen Jaulo, and who missed the first show. You'll have all that as a recap on your screens or on your phones on YouTube and on Facebook.
Should we commend Robert Chagulanyi's team for coming up with very strong evidence? Where did they get these names? I believe he has a strong team on ground.
Is that strong enough evidence, though?
I'm just wondering where you can get all these names that have been seen on screen. it means you have to go to their communities, find out their names, where they stay. I've seen names and where they stay, names and where they stay. That means NUP put in some good work to find out this evidence. Because imagine if we didn't know any names of people who are disappeared, people would just keep saying, okay, so and so disappeared, but we wouldn't have statistics and facts. But now
families
we have
families are coming out to report and
yes.
say Latifa Hamid is missing, Karo Tumwine is missing, and okay, I have a story to tell you. Okay. So this morning, I woke up and I was coming down from home, of course, as we're coming to work very early in the morning.
Yes.
And then a white drone. It had number plates, just to be fair. It had number plates, but it had a satellite dish on the car. And I was alone on the road, and the drone was moving. And then in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. Aren't those the drones that people were saying kidnap people? Because I remember the drones were white in color, and I'm alone on this road. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to walk faster. But hey, this is what happens when police doesn't come out to explain truly what exactly is going on. We start being skeptic when we see drones pass on the road. And then, of course, yes.
So when I came and looked at that drone,
you also
the
saw
other car,
yes.
So I'm like, where is Latifa? Oh, then I saw her. Then I'm like, okay, that's fine, because the driver looked like he didn't look like he was bad or anything. He just looked Ugandan. I think
it's just the fear.
Yes.
So
we just
the stories that have been going through the internet,
yes.
and this is where the question of whether the president speaking about the drones put more trust in the government. Did Ugandans trust the government better, or did they become scared of the government, for the president, the fountain of honor, to be the one to sit there and tell us that the security agencies are responsible for the kidnap of the very many people? Now we can count them to 600 if we add the Robert Chagulanyi list. Very many people.
Yes.
And then we have torture stories from the people who were kidnapped. But the ICT minister, Judith Nabakova,
yes.
said yesterday that the president had asked for a full report of what is happening and how these people were kidnapped, where they were kidnapped, and who kidnapped them exactly. And he says if there are any police officers who practice this particular kidnapping, excesses and tortured some people, they will be brought to book.
Okay. My question, though, would be, what is the use of the August House at this point, at such a time as this? Does the Parliament have any say in how decisions are being made from the security forces? Or is it just commands coming in from the security bosses and just going down to Ugandans without their members of parliament or their legislators giving in a word or two of advice on how they should be handled, of how these matters, should be handled? Yes, I'm just asking myself if the August House has anything to contribute to this matter, because if you take a look at the newly elected MPs, really we've had little or no information from them currently as regards to the arrests that have been made, as well as the way that the security forces have been treating Ugandans, especially the NUP supporters of Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu. So my question would still be, what would the role of the August House be? I think as STV we shall take some time and go down and ask some newly elected members of parliament to give their advice and their view on what exactly they think should be done by these security forces. What should be done better? Are they following the rules? Are they following the regulations and the laws that govern a Ugandan being arrested? Or do they even have arrest warrants? These are the things that we should be asking ourselves. And when did drones start to be vehicles to aid people going to prisons? I thought security forces do have branded cars, and the cars that you can tell this is the Uganda police, and so I know where I'm going, I'm safe and stuff like that. But if we start to use drones as a means of transport for these people going to prison or being abducted, then there's question marks all over the security forces. We tried I remember when you were away on duty, me and Simon Chris and Tariq tried to call the security forces on air. Yes, and they didn't respond. We wanted to really ask them about these issues, who handles what, and how is it possible for us to improve the way the security handles Ugandans, because the rule is that their work is to keep law and order. If we remember our primary school notes very well, their job is to keep law and order, as well as enforce that we have peace in the country. But I don't know if their side is causing a lot of instability somehow. Those are the questions that we are looking at this moment.